So, good morning, church. Happy Memorial Weekend, and I hope you've all had an enjoyable weekend, hopefully, while maintaining social distancing. It's always a pleasure and a privilege to break the bread with you all. And, it's like I said, I need to thank Pastor Fumi Obilano for this rare opportunity. Just in terms of just a quick Bible reading, if you want to turn your Bible with me to the book of John, chapter 6, verses 5 and 6. And I know we've read this earlier as part of our Bible reading, but I want to take these two verses just for emphasis. I'll be reading from the NKJV version, New King James Version. It reads, and I quote, "Then Jesus lifted up his eyes and seeing a great multitude coming towards him, he said to Philip, 'Where shall we buy bread that this may eat?' Verse 6. But this is said to test him, for he himself knew what he would do." I'll take verse 6 again. But this is said to test him, for he himself knew what he would do. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for your loving kindness. Father, we thank you for protection and for provision, even in these unusual times. Father, we thank you for another opportunity to come and land at your feet. Father, I pray that you, mighty God, shall come and take full control of my thinking faculty. That you speak to me and you speak through me. That through the foolishness of preaching this morning, that lives will be transformed. That destinies will be realized. That the sick will be healed. And that everyone under the sound of my voice will have a definite encounter with you. Thank you, Heavenly Father. At the end of the day, let all glory be yours and all blessings be ours, for in Jesus' mighty name we've prayed. Congratulations once again to the class of 2020. Sincerely, it's a very unique privilege to have the opportunity to share a few words with you, even as the Living Spring family celebrates you today. And I also want to thank Pastor Fumi once again for this opportunity. It's not something that I want to take for granted. So I know as we're putting this together and we're celebrating you all, and we're appreciating God for this major milestone that you've attained, we also need to thank your family members, your parents, your loved ones, your friends, your professors, and everyone that has helped you along this journey. I sincerely believe that no man is an island, and at some point you've received one or two help from people. So for everyone that has helped you along the journey, we also say thank you to you. As I was pondering on what I will share with you today, and I was waiting on the Lord for what would he have his people listen to, the Bible passage that kept coming to me is the Bible passage that we read in book of John chapter 6. I don't want to bore you with the story. It's probably a story that we all know. It's a very common Bible passage. Even from our Sunday school days, we've learned about the miracle of feeding multitudes. So I kept going back to God. I said, God, what has this got to do with people that are graduating? We are not about to have a party where we're feeding multitudes. So what is the correlation between this miracle and what you want people to hear? And the Spirit kept telling me, said, Shola, go back and study more. Not so much emphasis on the miracle, but what led to the miracle. So I took time and I've studied this passage so many times. And I said, so God, what would you like me to share with them? He said, in every human being, I've deposited seed of greatness. And I want you to share with them a couple of practical life lessons that if they take from this message will help them unlock the greatness that is in them. So in the next few minutes that we have together, I'll be sharing with you on the topic, unlocking the greatness in you. Unlocking the greatness in you. So, going back to the Bible passage, in verse 6 of that passage, it says, "For he himself what he would do. What does that mean? Basically, what the Bible is telling us is that when the problem arose, Jesus already had an answer for the problem. So when he was asking Philip, how are we going to feed these people? He already had an answer to it. What that tells me is that for anyone that will unlock their greatness this year, and this applies to not only the graduates, but every one of us under the sound of my voice, that the number one thing that you need to do is to master your craft. Do you have answers to questions that people are asking? As a matter of fact, knowledge is the new currency. For those that are graduating, you graduated from college, and in the academic institution, a lot of times what they've taught us is mostly black or white. They've given us the theoretical knowledge of how things work. But I'm sorry to disappoint you. In the real world, there's a lot of shade of gray. Things are not always white or black. So the question is, do you know the skills required for you to discharge your responsibilities diligently? Do you understand the trends happening in your industry? Do you even know what good looks like? Are you stuck in the past, or are you stuck in the present when others are beginning to think about next and beyond? These are questions that we all need to be asking about our craft. So do you have a mastery of your craft? As a matter of fact, a wise man, Haben Toffler, said, the illiterate of the 21st century is not he who can not read and write, but it is he who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. So which means we have to be dynamic in our approach. What we learned last year is no longer sufficient for this year. How do I know? I was listening to the CEO of Microsoft talk last week, and he was talking about what this pandemic has made them to do in the last 2 months. And he said something that almost gave me a high blood pressure. He said, in the last 2 months, we've done 2 years worth of transformation. Now, that resonated with me because I'm in the technology sector. And what I do is to provide services to my clients. So just pause for a minute and think about the ramification of that. They've done transformation of 2 years in 2 months, which means whatever I've known up until 2 months ago is 2 years obsolete. So when I go to my client tomorrow, or whenever we go back to work on Tuesday, and I'm trying to pitch to them what I had in mind 2 months ago, then I'm no longer relevant. So please, my number one ask of you is that you go after mastering your craft. And how do you do this? Investing your time and resources into learning. As a matter of fact, the day you stop to learn, you start dying. So whether your company or if you're an entrepreneur, whether you have excess money to pay for conferences, to register for journals for your trade, to invest in podcasts, to talk less on the phone and just immerse yourself in subject matter of your area, of your expertise, that is what we need to do. The grace of God is there and is sufficient for us. But also, God has principles. You cannot give what you don't have. So as people are coming to us and there are issues of life, there are questions being asked, are we prepared to answer those questions? This reminds me of a story that John Maxwell, you all know John Maxwell, told a few years ago. He said in the early 70s, when he was still a pastor, they were going to get a loan to build a church. And that was the first time, he would have gone through such a big transaction. So he was a little bit troubled. So we went to the bank manager with trepidation and said, I've put together the documents, our church will have to take a loan. How do we go about it? To his surprise, the process went very smoothly. And the bank manager said, yeah, we're going to approve the loan for you. So after about 5 minutes of, the loan being approved, he sat back and he was talking to the bank manager. And he said, is this how easy it is for you to approve loans? And the bank manager laughed. The bank manager said, look, a lot of people in our neighborhood are farmers. And I have a rule of thumb. When people come to us and want to take a loan, I only ask them one question. And the question I ask them is this: bring the picture of the fence for your farm. And he said, John, there are two types of fences. It's either you fence in or you fence out. Now, this is the difference. When you fence in, it means you're blocking your territory. You're protecting your turf. You're not growing your base. You're just protecting it. Now, the contrast is when you fence out, you're anticipating growth because it's not enclosed. You're hoping that you're going to expand and make your farm bigger. And he said, think about that. As a bank manager, what do you think I typically do? For people that have a closed mindset, a static mindset, a protect the base mindset, I decline the loan because there's no upside. All the stuff that they will ever do is already done. But for those that have fence out, that I know that there's an upside, that they will probably still acquire more acres of land and continue to grow, then there's an upside for me. So I look at the picture and I give them the loan. Brethren, it is the same thing with life. Life will always reward you when you have a growth mindset. Remember, Jesus knew what he would do and he was able to perform a miracle. Do you know what to do when people come to you for questions? Number 2, always remember that real life is a marathon, not a sprint. You know, one of the things I've observed in my work is that whenever we have a new set of people joining us, especially the younger generation, what they tend to do, especially for those that are high performers and maybe they are valedictorians in their colleges or they were high performing students, is that they are so driven to the extent that they think they can be the CEO the next day. And I admire their drive. I admire their focus. But I always tell them, think about this. A client is going to pay me $3 to $5 million to help them solve their problem. I will be talking to a CEO or a CFO of a Fortune 500 company. And you are just a college graduate. What experience are you going to share with a CEO that's been doing this for 20 years that will make you insightful? And then they keep quiet. And then I proceed to tell them that, look, what you need to focus now on is getting quick wins and building success over success. Because that is what gives you the credibility to be able to do what you want to do. So going back to the story that we read, because I said, you know, how does this story tie to graduation and unlocking your greatness? Jesus fed multitudes. But the question is, how did he attract multitudes? Because if he didn't attract the multitudes, he wouldn't have fed them. But to know what happened there, you need to go to verse 1 of chapter 6. It says, after these things, Jesus went over to the Sea of Galilee, which is the Sea of Tiberias. Then a great multitude followed him because they saw his signs which he performed on those that were diseased. But you actually need to go back to chapter 5 to understand what miracle he performed. In chapter 5 of the book of John, Jesus saw some people by the pool of Bethesda. There was a man there specifically that had been suffering from infirmities for 38 good years. And Jesus healed him. And then, because people knew him, people knew he's been there forever, the word spread in that neighborhood. And then people were like, wow, so Jesus did something. Then we need to, whoever did that stuff, who could heal somebody who has been suffering from infirmity for 38 years, we need to go and follow him and hear from him. What does that mean? It means that you don't have a platform to shine on if you've not had prior success. So pace yourself. You don't need to rush. As a matter of fact, an average college graduate in America is 22 years old. As I was preparing for this message, I went back and I checked what is the official eligible age for you to have full benefit for retirement. And it happens to be 66 years and 2 months, which means for a 22-year-old graduate, you have 44 years to work before you can retire, which means you will spend twice the amount of time you've lived on earth to work before you retire. So why the rush? The most important thing is to make sure that you build the right skill set right now, and that you build things precept upon precept, so that there are no cracks in your foundation. I'll share a personal story with you that hopefully that will bring this home for you. When I joined my company, we were about 85 in that class. And then, typically it takes 5 years for you to become a manager. So everybody was progressing at the right time. We all made senior after 2 years. And then after 3 years, we're going to make manager. But we had an outlier. One of us made manager in 4 years. And we're like, wow, this guy must be a rock star. But the story will not be complete if I stop there. Fast forward 9 years after that, it was time for promotion or admission into partnership, because you don't get promoted to partnership. You get admitted into partnership. It was time for admission into partnership. And then, out of all of us that started that class, only 2 of us made partner that year, including the person that made manager before all of us. Now, what does that mean for you? It means it doesn't matter how soon you start. It's about how well you start and you progress. For those that are always in a hurry, there's a likelihood that a big piece of the skills or puzzle that they need will be missing. But if you are very intentional, you are deliberate in accumulating and building on success over success, in due time, the reward that you're seeking will be chasing you. So please, understand, success begets success. Make sure you look for quick wins to boost your confidence and keep building on it. Point number 3. Grit. Grit. It means perseverance, persistence, never give up, never give up. As a matter of fact, this attribute is always what separates the good ones from the great ones. If you don't have grit, there's a limitation on how far you can go. And I know we are in a church setting, so I wish I could tell you that please, everything will be smooth sailing for you going forward. I would be lying to you if I did that. Because even just think about our Lord Jesus Christ, the Son of God. He came to this world as a man. And in chapter 5 of John, leading to chapter 6, he performed the miracle. He healed someone that's been suffering from infirmity for 38 years. Guess what the Jews did? They were seeking to kill him because he performed that miracle on a Sabbath day. So if Jesus could face trials and tribulation, could be persecuted, who are we that will not face trials and challenges? But I also know that 10% of our life is what happened to us. The remaining 90% is determined by how we react to those things. So I will tell you right now, you will face challenges. You will face disappointment. As a matter of fact, you will try things and you will fail in those things. But you can't let those events define you. You are more than those events. So what do you do when you try and it doesn't work? Are you going to give up? I hope the answer is no, you will not give up. I hope the answer is that you will keep trying until you make it work. Thomas Edison said, when you have exhausted all possibilities, remember this, you haven't exhausted them all. I'll give you a couple of examples. Jack Ma is somebody we all admire right now. We all know him, the co-founder of Alibaba. If you know his story, it's very surprising. Jack Ma applied to Harvard 10 good times. Every single time he applied, he got denied. As if that was not bad enough. When KFC went to China, 24 people applied to work for KFC in China. 24 people, including Jack Ma. The remaining 23 people got a job. Jack Ma was the only one that was denied. He faced adversity upon adversity. But guess what? He didn't give up. Because if he had given up, he wouldn't have founded Alibaba. Oh, have you forgotten the story of Joseph in the Bible? He had a dream. He told his brothers the dream. That dream was the reason why they sold him. He could have easily given up. But he persisted. Grit is extremely important if you're going to unlock your potential. And I know this for a fact. That look, there are days that are falling short of my own expectations. There are days that are falling short of other people's expectation of me. And those days typically are very difficult days for me. But I also know that hopefully that one event or those few events will not define me. So this is my approach. I know that not every day will be good. But there is good in every single day. So I try to focus on what are the good things in this day. When I fall short of my expectation and I fail, because I do fail and I fail fast, I try to fail forward. And really, what does that mean? I learn the lesson and I try to forget the details. And I hope you continue to do that too. Number 4, in the interest of time, and this is my last point. Manage your ecosystem. Manage your ecosystem. And I use this word because it's a catch-all. Your ecosystem, in my mind, is broken into two. On one hand, will be your core values, beliefs, behaviors. And on the other hand, will be the association that you keep. So let me start with your core values. Going back to the story that we read, if you go back to the book of Matthew chapter 14 that has a similar story, when Jesus got those 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes, you know what he did? He looked up to heaven. What does that mean? It simply means Jesus acknowledged his source. Brethren, I will tell you right now, it doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter whether you've mastered your craft. It doesn't matter how much grit you have. It doesn't matter whether you're playing the long-term versus short-term game. God is the soil we unconditionally need. Without God, we are nothing. And I'll share a story with you. When I was in college, a very good friend of mine, we were both high flyers in college. We were both teaching assistants, as undergrad. So we were teaching other undergrads and grading their scores in college. We shared the same office. Similar grades for the most part. And so I interned as a sophomore, I interned as a junior. And by the time I finished my internship as a junior, I already had a full-time offer. At this point in time, my friend, who's equally brilliant, very diligent, hadn't gotten a job. This bothered him so much that it was around March or April before we graduated. He said, Shola, what is wrong? I've had a lot of good interviews. I have the grades. People that don't even have grades as good as I do, they've gotten a job. I know your case is different because you have good grades. But why am I not getting a job? And I looked him in the face, I said, I don't even think my good grades qualify me for a job. All I know is that I pray one prayer. God, let me be at the center of your will for me. I said, so to me, it's a God factor. We left it at that. And about 2 weeks after, he called me and said, Shola, I have an interview. And I want you to drive me to the interview. I said, but I have classes. He said, so no, I really want you to drive me to the interview. So I said, okay, I will oblige. So as we were driving to the interview place, he said, Shola, you said it's God that's helping you. Can you pray to that God for me so that he will help me also? I said, I don't need to pray for you to my God. You can have a communication with that God directly and say, please, God, help me. That's all it takes. I said, you can close your eyes in this car right now and just pray that prayer. So he kept quiet. He got to the interview place. I dropped him off. He came back. He said, Shola, I prayed before that interview. So I said, how did it go? He said it was okay. He said, I've had better ones. I said, okay, let's see what God will do. Next day, he got a call. He got the job. What am I sharing this with you? God will put you in a position to glorify himself. Would your core values allow to where God wants to take you to? The next thing in Matthew 14 that they said Jesus was said, he looked up and he gave thanks. Are you grateful? Are you always worried about what you don't have and you neglect what you have? Do you count your blessings often? Even as we are in these very unusual times, where we have almost 100,000 people dead, are we better than them? Have you given thanks to God for just having good health, for just being alive? Or you worried about all the applications that you've submitted that you've not gotten responses for? Do you have time of reflection? When you drive back and forth, the same road that you ply, people have accidents and they don't survive. That same road, you come back home every day. You may not have the best of meal, but on your table, there is food on your table. You have clothes on your back. You have roof over your head. It may not be a mansion. Have you thanked God for those? Because if you don't appreciate him for the little, why will he bless you with more? And Jesus understood that principle. He looked up and he gave thanks. And it was the thanksgiving that brought about the multiplication. So if you're going to unlock your greatness, what are those core values that you need to have? Would you keep God as that soil that you unconditionally need? Will you remain grateful for everything he's done for you? So that's on the core value side. On the other side is association. And sincerely, this is one of those things I wish someone had told me when I graduated some years ago. I don't want to date myself, so you don't know how long I've been out of college. Quite some years. I was told that if you are smart and you are dedicated, your good work will speak for you. I'm telling you right now, that is a fallacy. And let me paint a picture for you. Last year, 2019, 2 million individuals applied to where I work. Guess how many people were employed? 69,000. That was 3.45% acceptance rate. Now to bring this home for you, we all know Harvard University. We all know how prestigious that school is. The acceptance rate for Harvard in 2019 was 4.5. So which means, if you just want to extrapolate, like it was much more challenging to get into where I work than going to Harvard. Now, I'm not saying my company is as prestigious as Harvard. I'm just laying a groundwork for you. So now let's say you work in where I work, and you have the belief that all you need to do is just have it, just do your job, do a good job, and everything will take care of itself. One of the reasons why that would be delusion is that one, every single person that came in would have been, cream of the crop. top of their class. So you're starting with best across the world. So in terms of differentiator, you all have similar technical skills. You probably all have similar educational background. And you probably all have good work ethics. So there will not be so much difference in between what you turn out and what they produce. Now, the difference though is that people like to work with people that they like. And this is where your association comes to play. In every walk of life, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a sportsman, whether you're a medical doctor, it doesn't matter what you do. I tell everyone that I mentor that just realize that whatever you do, we are all in a people business. Do you have co-workers? Do you have people that you supervise? Do you have people that supervise you? Even if you don't work for an organization and you're an entrepreneur, hopefully somebody is buying your services, so you have clients. Even if you're not providing services, you're making products. Hopefully people are buying those products. So at the end of the day, we are all in a people business. So what kind of associations do you need to have in order to balance your ecosystem? There are many, but I want to focus on two, and I've shared this with a couple of folks before. One is that you need to always have a mentor. And not only about work, but even life mentor. If you want to get married, who do you admire that? Who is that family, right? That has the family that has an amazing marriage that you want to model after. Having a mentor allows you to avoid pitfalls that ordinarily you would have fallen into. So a mentor is somebody who is experienced, who is wise, who's gone ahead of you, that can help you navigate and avoid pitfalls. So the question is, do you have one? Don't get this twisted. A mentor is not meant to tell you what you want to hear. A mentor will tell you what you needed to hear. And I can tell you, when I was going to be promoted or admitted, I thought I was ready a year before. So I went to one of my mentors. I said, I think I'm ready for admission to partnership. He looked me in the eye and he said, Shola, why are you in a hurry? You're going to spend more time as a partner than being a staff through senior manager. You are not ready. That was probably one of the best advice I'd gotten in my career. The additional 1 year that I spent was amazingly invaluable to me. By the time I made partner, the learning curve was nothing, because I spent that extra year operating as one. Another case I've shared with people in the church was, when I was much younger in my career, I thought I was great. And that was the feedback I was getting. And I was fortunate enough to have a manager transferred from the UK. She said, Shola, I've read your reviews and I do have high expectations. I said, don't get me wrong, you're good, but you're not great. So she brought me down to earth. I said, what? I said, how do you mean? She said, there are A, B, C, D, E, F that you're not doing. So for her, that is the difference between being good and being great. So I was fortunate to have people that would tell me what I needed to hear, not what I wanted to hear. And that's probably one of the reasons God has put me where I am today. The second association that you need to have, and you should crave to have, is to have sponsors. Like I said, all of you that will be working are high flyers. You're all intelligent. You're all smart. But guess what? Anytime a promotion decision is going to be made, it's not always made by the majority. There are few individuals that will get into a room and say who gets promoted. And a sponsor will be somebody that will speak on your behalf while you're not in that room. So do you have somebody speaking on your behalf? Do you have someone giving you ear cover? Do you have someone pounding the table for you? Those are relationships that we all need to crave and we all need to have. There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Simply means we all need each other to be successful. If you want to play a long-term game and be successful and go far, you need people. And I hope that as people will do that for you and they be your mentors and sponsors, you will also, in return, pay it forward and be mentors and sponsors to other people. As I bring this message to a close, I just want to share one story with you that I hope will bring everything together. And I'm sure some of you would have heard this story before. It's a story of a man that was on his dying bed. And he gave a wristwatch to his son. And he said, son, this wristwatch was given to me by my dad, your grandfather. And I'm giving it to you now. He said, but before I die, I really want you to know the value of this wristwatch. So go do your research and get back to me. So the young man was very eager. So he went ahead and he went to the like a wristwatch store in their neighborhood. Not a sophisticated one. And he said, hey, I have this wristwatch, very old wristwatch, very rusty wristwatch. How much will you pay for it? The guy at the store looked at him like, oh, this is so old. Oh my goodness. Because we know you live in our neighborhood, maybe we'll give you $100. The boy was very disappointed. Wow. So this was all our grandfather bequeathed since how many years ago? $100? It gets worse. He said, okay, let me try the pawn store in our neighborhood and see how much I will pay for this. So he went there and he looked at the wristwatch and was like, oh my goodness, this wristwatch, maybe we'll pay you $10. And then the guy at the pawn store said, young man, this is so old. How much would $10 be for you? Because the wristwatch is so old, why don't you just take it to the local museum, and just give it to them as a gift? Because $10, after 2 or 3 burgers, you're done. So the young man thought that was a good idea. He said, okay, let me go to the museum and see how much, or let me try and see how much it is, and then maybe I will donate it to them. To the museum, I met the curator and I said, I have this wristwatch. How much do you think this will be worth? And the guy at the museum said, let's take a look. So he took the wristwatch, took a look at it and said, wow, this is one of the very rare timepieces. He said, can we pay you $1 million for it? Brethren, moral of the story. That wristwatch is the seed of greatness. That greatness, if you cherish it, you nurture it, you work at it, will be valued differently by different people. But you need to know what it's worth. That same wristwatch that somebody was going to pay $100 for, that someone else was going to pay $10 for, somebody else was going to pay $1 million for. Do you know your worth? Do you have the right association that value your worth? Are you working in a place where the people truly value your worth? If we're working in a place where they're demeaning you, where they don't value your worth, do you belong there? Do you belong in a pawn store or in a museum? Only you can answer that question. But I want to leave you with that thought. You need to know your worth. And you need to know whether people are truly valuing what you carry. And if you do that, and you continue to master your craft, and you play the long-term game, and you play a win-win, and you add perseverance and grit, and then you take God as the soil that you unconditionally lead, I know for a fact that all of us will meet at one place, and that place is at the top. See you at the top. Go conquer the world, and may God bless you. Thank you.